Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance. And today we are diving into one of the most unique, most powerful, and honestly, one of the most healers in the entire game, because when we talk about Aiden, we are not just talking about healing, we are talking about transformation, about survival taken to another level, and about a hero that doesn't simply keep your team alive. He reshapes how your team survives. Aiden stands out immediately, not because he heals more than everyone else in a simple way, but because of how he heals, because his method is completely different from what most players expect when they think about a healer, and that difference is exactly what makes him so powerful. While most healers restore health directly and stabilize damage after it happens, Aiden operates through sacrifice, through manipulation of health itself, redistributing it, amplifying it, and turning what looks like a weakness into one of the strongest defensive mechanics in the game. At first glance, the idea of sacrificing health sounds dangerous, it sounds risky, it sounds like something that could easily backfire, but in reality, it does the opposite, because what Aiden creates is a system where damage is no longer a direct threat, it becomes something that is absorbed, spread, and managed over time, and that changes everything about how a fight develops. Instead of your team collapsing under pressure, instead of individual heroes being targeted and eliminated quickly, the damage is shared, divided, and diluted, allowing the entire team to remain stable even under heavy attack. And this is where his real strength begins to show, because as time passes, as the fight continues, Aiden doesn't just maintain the team. He strengthens it. Maximum health increases, survivability rises, and what starts as a balanced fight slowly shifts into a situation where your team becomes harder and harder to defeat. The longer Aiden stays alive, the stronger this effect becomes, and that is why he is not just a healer, he is a scaling force, a hero that rewards time, that rewards patience, and that turns prolonged fights into an advantage. But Aiden does not exist in isolation, and his true power becomes even more evident when you start building around him, when you start pairing him with heroes that benefit from sustained pressure, from increased maximum health, and from the ability to stay in the fight longer than they normally would. And this is where his synergy becomes one of the most important aspects of his gameplay, because Aiden doesn't just support. He unlocks potential. The most iconic partnership, without question, is with his sister Kayla, and this is where things become explosive, because together they create a cycle that is incredibly difficult to break. Kayla dives into the enemy team, she spreads chaos, she applies pressure, and even when she is pushed back, even when she is forced into dangerous situations, Aiden is there to support her, to stabilize her, to allow her to reset, and continue the assault. And then comes the resurrection cycle, the constant return, the constant pressure, and suddenly what should have been a risky aggressive playstyle becomes something sustainable, something relentless, something that simply does not stop. But then we move into a completely different type of synergy with Xe'Sha, and this is where Aiden's sacrifice mechanic reveals another layer of depth, because for Xe'Sha, sacrifice is not a drawback. It is fuel. Every point of health sacrificed translates into increased magic attack, which means that instead of weakening the team, Aiden is actively empowering Xe'Sha, pushing her damage higher and higher as the fight progresses. And this creates a scenario where power does not peak early and fall off. It grows, it intensifies, it becomes more dangerous over time, and that is where fights are decided. Then comes Guus, and here the dynamic shifts once again, because instead of focusing on sacrifice, the emphasis moves toward overwhelming sustain. With Aiden and Guus together, healing starts to stack in a way that becomes extremely difficult to deal with, creating a team that not only survives but thrives under pressure, combining survivability with critical hit potential, and turning what should be a defensive setup into something that can also deal meaningful damage. This is where Aiden shows his versatility, because he doesn't force one style of play, he adapts to what the team needs. And when you bring in heroes like Polaris and Satori, the picture becomes even more interesting, because both of these heroes are incredibly powerful but often struggle in longer fights due to their vulnerability. Aiden changes that completely, giving them the time they need to build their impact, to control the battlefield, to prepare their bursts, and to execute their strategies without being overwhelmed. What was once a weakness becomes manageable, and what was once risky becomes reliable. Then we arrive at Mushy and Shroom, and this is where Aiden enables something truly overwhelming, because under his influence, their scaling becomes even more intense, their presence on the battlefield becomes more dominant, and their ability to generate pressure over time becomes unstoppable. Each hit becomes stronger, each moment adds more power, and the longer the fight continues, the harder it becomes for the enemy to keep up. This is not about quick victories, this is about inevitability, about building toward a point where the enemy simply cannot match the force being applied. And this is the essence of Aiden, because he is not a hero that wins instantly, he is a hero that creates conditions for victory, that builds strength over time, that transforms the flow of the fight into something that benefits your team more and more as seconds pass. He reduces pressure, he stabilizes damage, he amplifies survivability, and he turns extended fights into opportunities rather than risks. So if you are looking for a healer that simply restores health, there are many options, but if you are looking for a healer that changes how your team survives, that reshapes how fights are played, and that allows your heroes to reach their full potential, then Aiden stands at the very top of that list. Because in the end, this is not just about healing. It is about control over survival itself, about turning damage into advantage, and about building a team that does not break under pressure but grows stronger because of it. Stay tuned, stay sharp. And as always, salute and friendship.